Hey everyone, welcome to the Underswell. I'm Derek Sabori. Thanks for being here. There's a 3, 2, 1, and then we're live. I'm live here with you. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, D. Happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. We were just reminiscing about how long we've known each other. And I mean, gosh, it's been almost 30 years. It's been a run. And we've watched each other's careers evolve and grow, and we're going to talk about all, yeah, exactly, intersect, but it seems like we've done a good job staying in touch, so we're going to have some fun kind of breaking down your career path and talking about the lessons learned. You ready to dive in?
We're all grown up now, D. Let's do it.
I can't believe it. I still struggle with that all the time. Well, hey, happy Friday. I always like to just jump in and say happy Friday and check in and see what you got planned for the weekend because the show is on Friday. So what do you got going on for the weekend?
This weekend, we've got the City of Newport Beach Surfing Championships happening.
That I saw the tents on the cam. Is that what's going on right there at 56th Street? Is that
North Side 56th Street? Mm-hmm. They're setting up today, and the swell has showed up just in time. It's a beautiful afternoon out there. I got some waves this morning, and hoping to grab some more later today too.
Well, I love the fact that we're in the middle stages of our lives, still surfing. Yeah, you much better than many. Local legend there off the jetty. So, Nick, I'm always glad when I bump into you in the water there. But for those that don't know Nicolai, I'm here today with Nicolai Glazer, global real estate advisor, Newport Beach, California, principal at Nicolai Glazer Real Estate Group, which is part of the Pacific Sotheby's International Realty team. A longtime entrepreneur and business owner, a franchisee, a former semi-pro surfer, and a second-degree black belt. And Nick, we've got so much to talk about, right? Did I leave anything out of those accolades there of your accomplishments?
It's fun to hear you read that. I appreciate it. It's not usually how I intro myself, but
right. None of us do, but I always think it's good, right? And it's like, what? And even as I read through those, I mean, we've known each other so long, and I'm like, as I read through those and write those, I'm like, dang, that's right. Like I forgot, Nick's got all these things going on. But like I said, you and I have known each other since the early days of both our careers, so I'm really excited to really unpack the career that I've had the pleasure of watching you build. I want to dive in and talk to you about what you do, how you got here, the lessons you've learned along the way. Is there anything besides surfing and the community events? What else keeps you busy outside of work? What are you doing personally these days?
Well, I have a beautiful wife that just keeps me excited and on my toes every day. So happily married, got a couple of fur babies. And other than that, try to keep life very simple and easy.
Any advice for because relatively still, can you still say newlyweds? I mean, it's been a bit, but it hasn't been that long.
2 years, October.
Yeah, I'm at 26, so I'm not a newlywed. So what advice do you have for those that are still in the early phases of their marriage? How about that?
Oh, well, and maybe that's what caused me to get married so late was just waiting for the right one. So, yeah.
Yeah, so when you've got the right one, lean in and make the most of it. Have fun.
That's right.
Well, today you're managing and running your own real estate business. You've got a team. You've got a bunch of clients. Tell us about your business and what a day in the life looks like for you.
Let's just say that I got my real estate license in 2009.
Okay.
And so for the last 6.5 years, I've been with Pacific Sotheby's here out of the Newport Beach office. And honestly, I've watched my real estate career evolve. The real estate community, being a realtor, it's a hunt. It's always looking for that next deal. And I've really gotten to a place with my career and with real estate that I've evolved and maybe graduated, if you will, into a very comfortable advisory role. That's been a lot of fun. There's a lot more comfort and peace that comes with that as opposed to chasing deals. So essentially the business, the framework of the business is still the same, related to representing sellers from a listing perspective or representing buyers from a buyer perspective, but just, a certain level of experience and confidence that comes with where I am that I really enjoy that side of it, like I said, from an advisory role. And just working with clients on a higher level.
So what do clients typically come to you for, or what might you be advising them on estate issues or investment issues when it comes to the real estate? Give me some more.
Well, I guess the easy answer for you is that there's no substitute for experience in any business,
Yeah.
and I think once you've done the rounds and you've gone through the different scenarios in this business, it sets you up for knowing what's coming next, right? If I
Yeah.
don't stay 1, 2, 10 steps ahead of my clients, how do I manage their expectations? And keep everybody happy and out of trouble. So it's people think of real estate as being oh, I got my real estate license, I'm going to sell a house, I'm going to get a commission, and it's a lot more detailed than that. It's quite honestly, I would say that we should probably have a degree in law, because we're having them sign these legally binding contracts, usually with big dollar numbers attached to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, probably need a degree in psychology too, because, we're constantly dealing with all the emotions of the transaction as well. So.
No kidding. Yeah, I never really looked at it that way in terms of those emotions, because I'm sure you're getting the excited ones who are just new and fresh into it, those that maybe have to let go of properties, or those that are refinancing because some sort of family emergency. I'm sure you've experienced all of it across the board, right?
All of the above, and a lot more. It's very detailed, and it doesn't have to be complicated, but we have some clients that really just lean into us and say, hey, guide us through this process. We're going to follow your lead and take your advice. And then we have other clients that are much more type A and either think they know better than us, or, want to take the lead on the process that can sometimes be a little disruptive or complicated. And that's when the psychology degree comes into, how to work with them the best way and keep everybody out of hot water.
Yeah. I also like that you mentioned just time and becoming an expert in something, and that you've got to give yourself time to do it. I mean, it hasn't even been 20 years. I always look at it in terms of like an 10-year overnight success, right? 10 years go by and all of a sudden like, oh, that's right, Nicolai does real estate. Like, he's really good. And it's like, yeah, but I've been doing it for almost 20 years. And yeah, you give yourself some room to do that. Yeah. And Nick, I know, you've seen success. You've been recognized as a top producing agent in Orange County. You've been included in Wall Street Journal's Real Trends, America's Best Real Estate Professionals list for small teams. You've been featured in Top Agent Magazine. And this sounds like a dream job now, but I know great careers don't just pop up out of nowhere. And like I said, besides, I knew you way back when. So let's do a little reminiscing. I want to talk about how you got here. We first met when I was purchasing and managing raw materials at Volcom here in Newport Beach. You were selling fabrics. I was buying them. Take me back to those early days, because I don't think I realized that the sales agency that you guys created, you and Brian, 5860, that was was that one of your first gigs after college? Tell me how you got into that space, selling fabric for the surf industry.
Yeah, so little rewind of the clock here. I think we established that you started over at Volcom in 1996.
Yes.
And I started with my textile career in 1995.
Okay.
And was just kind of a solopreneur at the time, and doing my thing, and didn't understand fabric, and kind of had to fumble my way. I'll tell you a funny story, actually. I started out selling twills and denim for a Indian importer. They were based out of Huntington Beach, if you remember them, Venus Textiles. Okay. And because you guys were buying some at the time. And, it was like, okay, I had an 8-ounce twill, a 10-ounce denim, a 12-ounce indigo. And it was like these very basic. And I was like, okay, I'll go figure out how to sell this. And somebody, my sales manager at the time, he's like, oh, you should talk to this guy and start selling product for him. Little did I know what a jobber was at the time. And, so I meet with this guy, and he's got all these swatches of these different things. And I swear to you, I did not know the difference between a woven or a knit. Yeah. And so it was just kind of, again, going through that thing. You don't know what you don't know, and the experience that comes along. But yeah, going back at that time and meeting you, and just the early days, the action sports market, surf, skate, snow industry was just absolutely blowing up in the Orange County area at
Yeah.
that time, and that was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. I was 25 years old and
Mm.
just trying to figure out, the roots of business and how to do sales and all that, and that was a lot of fun at the time. And it's funny you bring up my old partner Brian, who still, by the way, is one of my best friends all these years later. We just got back from a trip together. We were in the Maldives last month,
Mm.
surfing and having a good time. But
Nice.
it was the kind of thing and where I'd be walking out of, say, Volcom, for example, and I just got the PO for the board short fabrics,
The
and I
handwritten
got
PO, by the way, that came in
handwritten
triplicates.
POs
Yeah.
for all the yardage and all the colors, and I'm thinking, woohoo! And meanwhile, he'd be walking in, and I'm like, doing this, and then later that afternoon, I'd be going into Billabong, for example, and he'd be walking out, and he'd be like, he got the
Showing you the
PO.
paper.
So we were doing this dance for a couple of years where I'd be walking in, he'd be walking out.
Mm.
I'd be
Oh,
walking out, he'd be walking in. I'd see him everywhere. And we just got really friendly over time. And
yeah.
he's a super likable guy, obviously. And so we just decided, hey, instead of who's going to get there first to get the order,
Let's team up.
why don't we team up? So we just ended up partnering our resources, and I was learning, he was learning, and just kind of growing the foundation of our textile supply business at that time. And we ended up creating 5860, which had a great run for a lot of years. Yeah.
Yeah. That was kind of right time, right place, kind of everything. How
Yeah.
did you, I guess I want to know, I've got two questions on that. One, how did you know you wanted to be into sales? Like, how did you get there in the first place? And then two, how did you know, like, finding the right business partner can be tough. So how did you know just from passing in the, in the parking lots to knowing like, hey, we can do this?
Yeah, I think that the easy answer is I was too young and too ignorant to know what I wanted at all. So,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
was just kind of, fumbling my way along and figuring it out as I went. Growing up as a sponsored surfer through my teens and into college, I think when you come out of college, or most, a lot of the guys that were surfing and competing at that time weren't going to college, but the dream job when your surfing career starts to wind down or you're not competing anymore is to be, a team manager or somewhere in the marketing department at one of the brands. So everybody, all the focus around the action sports market at that time was to land a marketing or a team manager position at one of those companies.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I've always had kind of that entrepreneurial sales ability within me, and the clear path to being, marketing team manager wasn't really presenting itself. And one of my friend's moms was in the industry, and she said, "Hey, you should talk to this guy." And that's how I got started in this whole thing, and just kind of ran with it. Yeah.
It's interesting that you just brought that up, that idea of having somebody make a connection for you. I just think that is kind of the story over and over with all of our careers is somebody says you should talk to, or somebody says, hey, I've got an opportunity over here, right? How important has this idea of connecting, staying connected with people, networking, building relationships been for you along the way?
Listen, my relationship is proof of this, D.
Yeah,
and you and I have known each other. It was like, you were the client, and I was trying to sell product to you, and we built this relationship that evolved through the apparel industry, through my textile sales for many, many years, and has lasted long beyond all of that.
It's a great example. Yeah,
one of my
it's
dogs
endured.
that's sitting over here. It's you guys were fostering some puppies back in the day. Gosh, I want to say he's 8.5 years old now, my little Ketchy.
Yeah.
And, so it's just come full circle to, life today and being in the real estate business and connecting all the dots on this. It's like, I think being a good person, taking care of the people around you, really presenting yourself in a professional manner, being an upstanding, honest person, these things, those are clues that will guide you to great interactions, great introductions. And depending on what business you're in, they're going to, really be connecting the dots to relationships and deals. And that's not what it's all about. It's about having this foundational component where you just have great relationships with people, and that evolves into other things to support our lives later.
Yeah. It's a real testament, I think, to you, this idea of, that somebody that you were doing business with, that's how we met, doing business together. We endured through that, and that was enough, built up enough of a foundation to be still friends outside of business, totally different industries. Now, 30 years later, you're still good friends with your former business partner. That doesn't always happen.
No.
So, yeah, really good for you. What happens then? So, you have that run at 5860, right at the boom of everything. Keep going. Then what comes after that? How do you transition? What's next?
The transition, it was a slow transition, if you will. It feels slow when I look back on it and think about it. But I bought my first house back in 2002. And at the time when I bought my house, working in the apparel industry, I've got 5860. I didn't know anything about real estate, okay? But I was living in the house that I own now, renting it at the time. And I'd been there for 7 years, and the owners called me and said, "Hey, we're ready to sell the house. Do you want to buy it?" I said, "Absolutely, I do."
Yeah.
And they said, "Okay, great. We're going to hire a realtor, and you guys can work out the details." And I knew enough to say, "Well, you save the commissions on the realtor. Let's just find an escrow office, and we can deal direct." And the funny part of the story, which has really led to where I am today, is that afternoon I get a knock on my door, and there's this young, arrogant SOB that pops his head and his chest in and says, "Oh, so you think you're the guy that's going to buy this house?" I mean, literally, that was my introduction to the realtor who now got hired to sell the home that I wanted to buy.
Oh, wow.
And I'm thinking to myself going, "Oh my God, who is this guy and what did I get myself into?"
Right.
And I'll try and keep the long story short here, but it's really what's evolved into where I am today. I ended up calling one of my neighbors down the street, an older gentleman, Chuck Jones. I called him. I said, "Chuck, I need your help." I said, "This is the situation." He used to call me Guy. "Okay, Guy, don't worry about it. I got you." And next thing I know, that Chuck comes in and he just kind of helps me put the deal together. He manages all the documentation, the escrow process, and the whole thing. And, I didn't have to deal with that other guy. Okay. Deal goes through, successfully purchased the home, all well and fine. But there was always a bad taste from what happened. I was a first-time home buyer. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Meanwhile, I've got this pompous SOB that, comes here and tries kind of roughing me up right out of the gates.
Yeah.
And it always sat in a real uncomfortable space for me. And fast forward the clock, I was getting bored with the apparel industry, the textile business. And it was about 2008 at the time. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to get my real estate license because I don't want what happened to me back then to happen to me again. So I want to get educated. So I go through the process of studying for the real estate license and end up getting my real estate license. And quite honestly, the educational process really doesn't teach you how to be a realtor. It doesn't teach you about the process. It doesn't teach you anything about the contracts or the escrows or anything related to, the business in general. It's very mundane process, to be honest with you.
What does it teach you? Just sort of the rules of engagement? Kind of, what is it? You get out
there's
of it?
Ethics, there's fiduciary responsibility, there's certain things related to, well, if we're talking about the sale of acreage and there's a water tank on the property, how do you do all these different things that were really just not day-to-day application stuff in the business. And so anyways, I ended up passing the test, getting my real estate license, and I had no intentions of doing anything with it. But my girlfriend at the time, she said, "You know what, you're good with people and you're good at business and you should think about doing this." It was 2009. The country, the whole world is like diving into this recession. We've got the implosion of the financial markets all happening. And I was like, okay, I don't know any difference. Yeah. I don't know any different. So I end up, at the time, it was Prudential California Real Estate, which later became Berkshire Hathaway. go over there, get into their mentor program, and start figuring it out and learning out. And funny part of this story, it was about 10 years later. I have a listing. It's down off a Seashore Drive in Newport here, down on the beach, and I get a phone call from an agent. He says, "Hey, this is so and so, and I'd like to show your property." And I said, "Okay, no problem." And I said, and it was the guy who was the listing agent on my house from 10 years prior. I had seen him around. I knew who he was, but I just steered clear from him.
Sure.
And so I go there, I set up the property, and I'm sitting down, and here he comes walking up, and he walks up, and he goes, "Hey." And I go, "Hey." And he looks at me, and he's like, "Do you remember who I am?" I go, "Yeah, I remember who you are." And he looks at me, and he goes, "Are we cool?"
Oh,
and I looked
wow.
him straight in the eye, and I just said, "Is that your way of apologizing to me?"
Mm.
And he just kind of swallowed his pride right then. He knew he was an a-hole. And, we kind of broke bread a little bit. Nothing fancy past. The funny thing is I'm totally friendly with him now. He's actually retired out of the business, and he's referred me a couple deals along the way.
Nice.
I even sold his father-in-law's property. So it's just one of those things where it's how I got here. But to layer onto that story, I got into this business and I built my business based on how to take care of first-time homebuyers so they don't have to deal with what I dealt with.
Yeah.
And so that's where my business kind of started, my thought process. I don't want you to go through what I went through.
Yes.
So my ideals and my standards right out of the gate were already set here. My bar was already set in a spot where I knew that I wanted to provide a higher level of service to people that wanted to buy, and just really be present with the transactions so that people just didn't feel lost, taken advantage of. You don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
when you're buying and selling a house, most people have no idea what they're getting themselves involved in. So to have somebody, as I said, as an advisor, to truly take them through the process, manage their expectations and stay ahead of them. That's why I'm here. That's why I love what I'm doing and really enjoy the process and just, servicing people on a higher level. So
Yeah.
I don't remember what the original question was, Steve. Maybe went off on a little tangent there, but that's kind of the story of where I started in this business and how I got to this point. But I'll tell you another unknown fact, maybe, and some people know it, but I started running my real estate business in 2009 while I was still running my textile business.
Yeah, I remember that.
It wasn't until 2017 when I finally decided to, step away, if you will, from the textile business. I had done my run, and it was a lot of fun, and made some amazing relationships and along the way. But I said, you know what, I'm gonna go full time into real estate. I was killing myself. I was stressed out. It was too much of a burden.
Doing both of them.
Yeah, I was running my textile business. I felt internally like I could run that business in my sleep. I was just, it was easy for me. And I didn't realize until I stopped doing it in 2000, it was July of 2017 when I stopped, did I realize how much of a toll it really took on me and how much time I put into it. But, it was at that time, because my real estate business, I'd been doing a great business leading up to that point. But that gave me an opportunity to just really take it to another level, which has been a lot of fun since then.
Yeah. Okay. So that allows me to jump in with a couple of questions, because I was thinking that very thing. I remember sort of when you were doing both of them, and my question was going to be, and I think you kind of answered it, how you had spent years building a reputation in sort of sales and textiles. And I mean, I know that can be really lucrative at that time. I mean, it was like you said, we were all systems go.
Yeah.
It almost feels a little bit risky. And I'm wondering kind of like your thought process of knowing that you're going to leave something, you've got to go rebuild your reputation in something else. It's going to take time, but you did say you didn't really know any better. You were just sort of like getting burnt out on it. Walk me through sort of that feeling. And maybe the answer is your overlap. That seems really smart. Walk me through that decision and what that felt like, having to start over after having a really good reputation already in an industry.
Yeah, you said it right, though. There was an overlap, and I had an 8-year running start with my real estate business.
Yeah,
and, for the most
smart.
I led it as a separate entity, and I was actually doing business with people who I did business with on the other side in the apparel
Mm.
world too. They just knew, hey, we like how you handle your business. We know you're professional,
Yeah.
and we trust you. So
Yeah.
those are the foundational components of being successful in a business. So it was a relatively smooth transition for me, and I probably should have put my bags down, so to speak, with all my textiles, a couple years earlier. Just kind of the stress, but no, it was the timing was good. It was the right time, and I already knew that I had a strong foundation with my real estate business when I did that. So it was a easy transition.
Yeah, well, it's like you leveraged your past and sort of hedged as well, just in case it didn't work out. You could go back either way. So that seems
Yeah.
like a really smart move. Did you always know? It seems like if I look back, even looking at your resume and just sort of knowing you, I don't know that you've always worked as an independent contractor. Then, right? Have you ever, as an adult, like had to go be an employee somewhere and kind of clock in and be there all day and then hope that you could go do your own thing one day, or you've always done your own thing?
I don't know. Do you use the word adult there? I'm still trying to figure that one out. I feel like I'm a kid stuck in a man's body here,
Yeah,
but
I hear you.
no. So honestly, no. I mean, it's when I was in college and when I graduated, I was a busboy over at Planet Hollywood over by South Coast Plaza. That was the
Mm,
last job that I had to punch a time card
yes.
and show up somewhere, so to speak, on somebody else's schedule. But that's the fun. That's the fun of being a independent contractor, if you will, with my textile business, with real estate. You can be as successful as you want to be. It's up to you. You get an opportunity when you wake up every morning, what you want to do with your day. And
Mm-hmm.
this is a conversation that I have with our youth. I'm mentoring some girls right now, and it's just like, look, you have an opportunity to do things that you don't think are possible, and it all starts with you internally. Right here
Right at the heart.
at the heart with you. What do you want, and how do you want your life to be? And it's one step at a time. I think people create these big goals and these New Year's resolutions where I want to do this and I want to achieve that, and they create these grandiose things, but they never reverse engineer or figure out how do you take one step today.
Mm, mm.
And the courage to know that I'm going to take that step today, and guess what? I'm going to take that same step or the next step tomorrow. And it's just one step at a time. And anybody that's been successful in any business, you didn't just show up here today doing this podcast, with the Underswell and, with all your success and your what you've learned with your sustainability business. That didn't just happen overnight. That was years of planning, training, and taking one step at a time,
Right.
and having confidence in your ability to know that you want to go down that path. And you figure out, like you said, as you're going down that path, sometimes you got to pivot right, pivot left, and where you want to make those adjustments. And it's amazing. It's like driving a car. You drive a car and you're going down the street. When you're on that road, on that highway, if you tilt your wheel just a little bit like this, I mean, you're going to go like that,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I think people fail to realize in life where you have the opportunity, it doesn't have to be the big jerk here and the big jerk there, and everything's in extremes in life. Even day-to-day communications with people, it doesn't have to be that. It's just, how do we make those little minor tweaks? What's working? Do more of it. What's not working? Cut it out, and figure out how you can have more of that straight line or that trajectory in your life for success and growing and getting ahead.
Yeah. You mentioned just sort of like, what it's like working in real estate. I just wonder, what do people kind of get wrong about that space? Young people who maybe are like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go get a degree, real estate license, and it's going to be all great. What have you learned? What do you want people to know about that space? Obviously it takes time. You got to put in your years, but what else?
Yeah, I mean, let me just be honest with you. The barrier to entry into the real estate business to be a real estate agent, I've joked about it in the past, that you can get your real estate license in a box of Cracker Jacks.
Yeah.
You don't need to have any qualifications to go take the test, other than, the basic studies to show that you passed the courses. But the actual ability, people get their real estate license and they think, oh my God, I'm going to go sell a house and I'm going to make all this commission and I'm going to be rich and I only need to sell a couple houses a year and this is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that you're running a business. There's cost to doing business. You've got your insurance and you've got your MLS memberships and this, that, and the other things that are cost of doing business every day. Not to mention you're paying taxes on that money and all these things that adulting comes with. But you got to understand how to run a business. It's not I'm going to sell a house, I'm going to get a commission, and then I'm going to go, party or take a trip for the next couple months, and then I'll go sell another one. It's not that kind of business to do this. And I think that's the misnomer with people. And I have people come to me all the time. Hey, I want to join your team. And, I'm really passionate about real estate. And I'm just like, listen, you got to love what you do, but it's not about the house. It's about the people and the process. And, it's if you're in this business for the commission, get out, go do something where you're going to have a 9 to 5 and assure yourself to a wage or a paycheck, because you can work for 6, 12, 18 months in this business for free, right?
Yeesh. Yeah.
So you wake up every morning and you're unemployed and you got to decide how you're going to go out and get some business. And that's what comes with experience and time, and obviously with an opportunity to create a referral source and have people recommend you and write nice testimonials, so that when people are researching you or looking for a realtor, you're either getting introduced, a warm introduction, or people are researching you to go, hey, this is a pro, this is an advisor, this is who I want to work with, and not, hey, I found somebody that has a real estate license because he was sitting at this open house. He must know what he's doing.
Right. It's good advice, and I think good things to remember. And I can't help but think, it's funny that you mentioned Planet Hollywood. You and I were probably working neighbors. I was working at Red Robin, like two buildings down there by South Coast Plaza, probably about the same time. But I wonder for you, because a lot of this show is really geared in my mind for younger people building their careers and trying to figure it out, because I know it can be really overwhelming, really scary, really frustrating. I hear that real estate, talk a lot. And you're like, yeah, you guys, it's not that easy. Like, trust me. So it's good to hear you say that. But I also wonder, what was it for you we all have to come to a decision where, like, I'm leaving this restaurant job or this bartending job or whatever it is. I need to go get on a pathway and try to build a career. And it sounds like you weren't really sure of where that might take you.
Yeah.
What was that catalyst like? How did you know it was time to, like, hey, I've got to go take this sales job. I've got to go talk to my, the family friend. Take me back to those days. Do you remember?
Well, again, we're 24, 25 years old. I mean, the ignorance that comes with that is just, you can't really wrap your head around that of saying, oh, I was very intentional with how I was doing these things.
Right.
Having the conversation with young people and where they are, where they're starting their careers. And I would just say, you have to be ambitious. You have to have some tenacity. Mm-hmm. You have to live your day-to-day with intention, and, figure out what your value proposition is, understand what you want to do and how you want to do it. Some people are good at this business or in a sales type of role because it's their type of personality, it's their ability to do it. Whereas other people, like my wife, she wouldn't be good as a salesperson. She's an artist, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to understand what's going to work well for you and where you're going to excel in those categories. And, for anybody that's thinking about getting into any business, look, some people are lazy as hell. Mm-hmm. And they're just not going to help themselves out, period. And other people are extremely ambitious, but don't know where they want to go. There's certain ways to understand these things. I don't want to get too technical, but you could do a personality assessment, like the DISC assessment is a free tool to use to figure out your personality. What kind of person are you? And that can gear you to maybe what industries or what type of businesses you'll be good at. And all because I had a friend's mom that said, hey, let me introduce you to so-and-so. That might not have been a good fit for a lot of people. And I just, I knew it was going to be a good fit for me. So I think, through life, there's not a good manual to say, here, do this, then do that. It's kind of like parenting, right? You've got, a couple of kids. It's like, where's the manual? There's a lot of that you figure it out on the fly, and you get challenged at times. And I think it's when you get challenged and, when life hits you with those things that were unplanned, unexpected, or this is more difficult than what I think I signed up for, where we all grow. That's where real growth happens. And, it's in any business. And, whether you're a janitor, whether you're working at a restaurant as a hostess, or whatever it is, whatever you're doing, be amazing at it. And it's amazing when you're great at what you do, there's fulfillment and or opportunity that comes from that, because we don't live in silos and we're constantly interacting with people on a daily basis. And I mean, nowadays with social media, it's like I find myself on Instagram, I'm posting videos. I started a YouTube channel, and it's just to show, my business, my cadence, my commitment, and my skill set. But as with anything, it's like, we're constantly being seen by other people, and people will acknowledge if you're a stoner and a screw up, or if you're an intelligent, human being that's trying to get ahead and needs a break. Right. And they come in all different shapes and sizes. And that's, before you start really digging into, maybe faith-based conversations or other things of what we do to surround ourselves with people that are going to help us grow. And so, for the young people, again, what you don't know, you don't know. And if you don't have the experience, guess what? You don't have the experience. And that's where you just got to lock in and do the repetitions. But, that being said, and I didn't learn this till later in life, because when I was younger and social and there's always a party and, you want to be part of the scene, it's like, that's fun. But there's a certain point in time where it's less fun, and we got to grow up and we got to take responsibility of how we're leading our lives. And I think, I'll just say this, and I didn't coin this statement, but you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And you got to decide who you're spending your time with, whose cup you're drinking from, and are they filling you up and bringing out the best of you, or are they bringing you down and keeping you in a safe place where they like to hang out? And, I think as you grow up, you learn about who you want to maybe eliminate. They're not serving me. These people aren't helping me grow. And, it's as you get older too, you don't need 1,000 friends. You don't need to be, have 100 friends. It's like your group gets smaller, your core gets tighter, and relationships get a lot more rich.
Really good reminder, and I think paints a really good picture for young people, all things to keep in mind. So, Nick, let's take a break. When I come back, I want to ask you sort of for you, what's been underneath the surface for you this whole time? Kind of what drives you? What's that unseen force that kind of takes you to that next level? I want to get some more advice that you just gave for career builders who are still early in their journeys and or who might be looking to pivot into a career like yours. So hang tight, and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the episode. I'm always so inspired and motivated by these career stories, and I hope you are too. And I wonder, are you looking to be featured on the show? Each week, I chat with an invited guest who is an expert in their space or who has compiled a stellar resume. If you fit that description and are interested in being a guest, just hit me up at Derek Sabori on LinkedIn. And here's something else to consider. This show platform is for hire. I build professional and personal podcast profiles for people who are looking to stand out in a crowded marketplace. You've heard my guests say it's your personality, the way you connect with people, and your ability to relate and communicate that will help land that next job, client, or customer. So let's show off your personality, not just your resume, and let's do it on a podcast. Head over to theunderswell.com to learn more. And now back to the show. Nick, I call this show The Underswell because, like I said, I really believe that underneath any success, you and I are both surfers. We know that it's a swell that forms way off somewhere else that, forms the surf that we eventually get to ride. And whether it was a storm or some sort of agitation, there's a reason or there's something that powers and drives the success that shows up on our resume. So for you, it's different for all of us, but what has been your underswell this whole time?
My underswell, well, it's a great question. My underswell has evolved as I've grown, as I've gotten older. And, today when we're recording this, I'm 54 years old. And kind of like I was saying with the evolution of my real estate business of going from, I'm a realtor to what I call myself is a real estate advisor.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like with martial arts, you train, you train, you train, you train, and then, hey, I got my black belt. It's like, I feel like I'm that, fifth degree master now,
Mm.
where it's like the matrix where everything slows down.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean I'm not still learning, because I think I'm just learning and consuming at a quicker pace this day.
Yeah.
And I consume a lot of content with podcasts, and I'm so curious about life. And I feel like as I've slowed down, like I said, I'm learning more. And that underswell for me, as I've grown, is really more about, not to sound cliche, but there's like a whole wellness, health wellness, holistic wellness. There's the
Mm.
coin, phrase of biohacking. To me, right now, everything's about life hacking. And I really
Mm.
want to understand, how do I become the best version of myself? And
Yeah.
we're challenged every day in life. I don't want to paint a picture that, oh, my life is all perfect and rosy and, this, that, and the other thing. It's like, every day, like I said, when you wake up, you have a choice every single day who you want to be and how you want to perform. That's a choice. And I
Mm.
make a choice, and I've had that decision-making process of making that choice since I was younger to excel. And as I've excelled and learned through life, my path has evolved. And
Mm.
you don't know until you get there, honestly, of what that looks like. And, flashback, 30 years ago, as I was, building my textile business, it was about going hard, and
Yeah.
and partying and just being out there and just having fun. It was a very just, fast pace of life. And
Mm-hmm.
to where I am today, it's like, I stopped drinking alcohol. I sleep better than I've ever slept before. I pay more attention to my health than I've ever paid before. And I'm intentional about what I put in my body with my diet, and just really trying to focus on, not just from a longevity and overall health aspect, but really just focusing on that whole wellness,
Yeah.
that, that life, the whole of life. And it's been a big journey that has, includes health, wealth, and wellness.
Mm.
And it just combines everything. And I think once you actually slow down and start having the opportunity to take notes on where you are in your life and how you got here, is when you can really start to grow the most. And, you hear people say, and it almost sounds cliche. It's like, oh, you
Mm.
got to slow down to speed up. And it's like, as I've slowed down and become much more comfortable and confident with who I am and where I am in my life, everything has flourished around me. It's like I met my wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just, even though we've been together for 6.5 years, but it's like my life has continued. It's this evolution, this blossom of growth. And that's what's really important for me, and the people I surround myself with, and, people on my team, and just who I share my daily interactions with. It's really important that I'm really focused on just that growth, and that being the best version of myself. And like I said before, it's a challenge every day. Every day
Yeah.
we get tested, and it's where the experience comes in. Experience with life,
Mm.
take the whole real estate transactional side of things aside. It's like not being reactionary in life, but, and being responsible for your actions, how you talk to people, how you treat people, how you carry yourself, what you're putting in your body, how you sleep, how you present yourself, everything. This just becomes an opportunity. It's like a blossoming flower of really that underswell that you're talking about. And, for me, my love for the ocean with surfing, doing yoga. I'm coming off of a second injury right now where I've just really locked into, okay, I need to take better care of my body. I had a hip replacement less than 6 months ago, and it's like, okay, that really kicked me sideways and took me a while to get back. And then right when I was coming back, we went on that surf trip that I mentioned to the Maldives, and I was feeling great and I was surfing good. Second to last day of the trip, I tore my calf muscle, and I
Mm.
came home from that trip in a wheelchair.
Oh.
And it was like, okay, I have to start over again. And literally the day I got home, I had to have the, sit down talk with myself and be like, okay, like I need to dig myself out of this hole because I need my body to function and move in a way that I need it to perform at its best version of itself.
Yeah.
My mind and everything else around me. So it's just, it's been, I don't know, 5 weeks since we got back from that trip. I'm back in the water surfing right now, and just, I just got back in the last few days, and I'm just kind of like relearning all those basic fundamentals again in that department, but it's just, it's here. And it's here, and that's where my underswell and my focus has been. It's been a fun journey, and I'm really excited about where I am and just how I feel about life right now.
Yeah, I like that approach. This idea of being the best version of yourself, reaching your full potential.
Yeah,
that's great. I want to know. You mentioned earlier you alluded to college. You went to Cal State Long Beach and SDSU. You studied industrial and organizational psychology. But you mentioned how psychology is applied to your work now.
Yeah.
I loved that area of study when I did my MBA, but I want to know kind of how important was your college experience to you in your career? Because I think in your space, like you said, a lot of maybe pro surfers, semi-pro surfers, sponsored surfers weren't taking a college path. So you did. What did you get out of it? Why was it important?
Yeah, let's rewind the clock again. So I didn't want to go to college. I wasn't planning on going to college. I wanted to surf, and I didn't have a plan around that. And quite honestly, my mom filled out one college application to SDSU, and I got accepted. And I went off to college and just, kind of fumbled my way through. Going from high school to college, it was a big transition. But like I said, that earlier party of life, it was just, you're figuring it out as you go. We were partying and having a really good time. And it was the transition from SDSU to Long Beach State happened after my third year down in San Diego, kind of the roommate situation that we had. We were living in Mission Beach and having a good time, but our house was breaking up and everybody was going to go find new roommates. And one of the guys that I was going to move in with, and we've been planning on all summer, he was being really flaky about helping to find a place. And it was literally like a week or two before school was starting. And I just said, screw it. I don't have a place to live. I'm not going back down. And I literally pulled out of San Diego State. I did one semester at OCC, and I just finished up any of that lower division stuff that I needed to and filled out the transfer paperwork. And I was living back in Newport and commuting to Long Beach State, where I did a year and a half there to graduate. But it was interesting because that one semester that I did at OCC, it was so transformative because I reconnected with so many people that I hadn't seen for a while. And made some amazing connections and friendships during that time period, one semester at OCC.
Wow.
And then going to Long Beach, the new friends and the relationships that I made there. And I was basically coming in there as a senior.
Yeah.
And even though I had a year and a half left of school, and so I came in and just at this point, I was just starting to enjoy the process. I really, you bring up IO, industrial organizational psychology. I just really started to love it. And it was probably until that last year to year and a half of college did I understand how to really study, how to, really lock in and grow and learn. Otherwise, you're just in books and it's mundane and you're being told what to study and you take this test and you forget about it 5 minutes later.
You're like, why am I here?
That's when it really kind of all came together for me, where I just really started to kind of appreciate the journey and the process. Was my last year and a half at Long Beach. So, graduating from there and like I say, transitioning into our story of working at Planet Hollywood. And then I did another stint, in between Planet Hollywood and getting into the textile business. But it's been, there's no manual. That's what we were talking about before. It's just like you learn and you just kind of one foot in front of the other, knowing that I was always ambitious, but not knowing where I was going. So I think if you're, for the young people today where they're like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a CPA, I want to be a lawyer, where you have a very specific path in the field that you want to take, then that is laid out for you. If you're doing anything else, there's a lot of unknown and figure it out as you go.
For young people who are considering college or wondering if it's for them, because to your point, in those early days, you're just like, I don't get it. I don't see the point. Why would I take these classes, X, Y, Z? That's not going to do anything for me. Would you advise, everybody has a different case, I get it, but overall, what do you see in the workplace too for young people? Do you advise them? It's like, go for the college degree. Don't worry about it. Or is it just, what do you think for others?
So listen, our generation was you go to college, you get a degree, and that's going to set you up in the workplace.
Yep. Yeah.
That'll help you get your job. That's part of your resume is I have a diploma from, XYZ university, and this is what I studied, and that's why I'm going to be good for the position that you're hiring.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the workplace has evolved. And I think, our youth have evolved as well. But I'm not of that mindset. I don't have kids, but if I had a kid today, I wouldn't say, hey, you have to go to college. It's not for everybody, but you have to, that doesn't mean that that's an out. That doesn't mean that, hey, this is my opportunity to take, exit stage left here, because it's not for everybody. And it doesn't mean what it did years ago. I think for people that are still trying to figure out what they want to be and where they want to go, it's a great opportunity to, really practice and fine tune a skill set in a particular field that you may or may not use later in life, but just being there, committed every day. It doesn't matter what it is, like I've repeated, you have an opportunity every day when you get up of what you want to do, how you want to do it, and where you want to excel in life. And if you don't have something to do that's not going to take you forward in life, go find something that will. And if that's educational, go for it and just do it, because you never know what fork in the road's going to come that'll give you an opportunity or a path that you see that you want to take. But I don't know if I want to go to college. I'm not talking to you or about your kids, but it's like not every kid wants to go to college, but that's not your excuse to stay home and smoke pot and go skateboarding in the afternoon and, not have a path. Like you got to figure this out.
Yeah, that's exactly it. All right, that's good. I want one more thing for young people. For people who want to be able to afford one of the luxury coastal homes that you sell someday, what advice do you have for them?
Listen, you got to have ambition in life. It's whether we talk about one of the luxury coastal homes or we talk about just entry level, just the affordability factor to buy a home is high in this country, and you have to establish yourself. You have to establish your credit. You have to establish your savings. You have to set yourself up for success to be able to do that. It's not like you roll out of bed and be like, "Oh, I'm going to buy a house today."
Right.
There's a life plan that comes into this, and as people are able to build a career for themselves and understand how to manage money. People think, oh, I've got a job. Cool, I'm going to go buy a car. Cool, I'm going to go buy this. I'm going to go buy that. It's not about how much money you make and how much money you spend. It's about how much money you save. And it's not just a savings conversation, which is what our parents would say, save your money. But understanding the value of that money and how you're going to spend it and utilize it to get your life ahead. So with regard to buying a house, there's a whole process to this. And you don't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to buy a house. But there's a big difference between, buying what would be an entry-level property in coastal Orange County for, call it $500,000 versus buying a $5, $10, $20 million home is a whole nother caliber. So, and a lot in between. So, listen to our young people that are listening to this, and any parents, that have young people that are trying to figure it out. It's like, one step at a time. It's, you really have to get up and you got to do that repetition. The person that wants to be the bodybuilder, they didn't just show up and as this big fit muscly thing. They went to the gym every day and they did the repetitions every day for hours every single day. And when they were tired, they got up and they went and did that again the next day. And you got to feed your body and you got to feed your mind and you got to really focus in on being what you're set out to do. And like I said before, it's, you might have that pivot or that path change along the way, and just know as you get older, you become more mature with your thoughts, hopefully, that you're making those good decisions and you've set yourself up for success with those decisions that you want to make, that it's going to take you down a path that you want to go on. And by the way, if that path doesn't work out, that's okay too, because that's what has trained us to get to that point of being able to then pivot and, hey, this didn't work out, but now the foundation that you've laid for your ability to go get what you want and succeed in life, that path, that success trajectory is shorter because you have that foundation already laid.
Well, you've unlocked something really interesting for me that I don't think I had looked at this way. The bodybuilder analogy is so good, but when you compare that with buying a home, it's like, you know what, you can build sort of your future every day, putting in the hard work. But it's like, if one of your goals then is to buy a house, say you need to be saving every day, just like you would be going any other practice, your martial arts, the discipline. It's like, you need to be doing this every day, because you don't just wake up and say, I'm going to go buy that nice house on the hill or on the coast. Start getting at it every day. So really good. Nick, let's start wrapping this up for everybody and for you, so I can get you back to doing some advising and helping your clients. But looking back on the last 5, 10, 15 years, scanning your professional decisions or your personal ones, what do you think you've learned about yourself? What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned along the way? Either way you want to look at that question, what have you learned?
It's a great question. The biggest thing that I've learned is self-confidence. I think we go through life and listen, we're all brought up differently, and there's a path to understanding who we are as individuals, who we are as a man or a woman, as an adult, however you want to figure that out. But and you and I shared some of this more when we had lunch last month. And it's just, life is a journey, and I think where you learn along the way, and your ability to understand, your ability to take notes, take advice, and really have confidence in where you are in your life and how to continue to grow. That is the single most powerful thing that has gotten me to where I am today. And let me be clear, there's a big difference between self-confidence and everything else out there. Having self-confidence, that's a self-worth, self-valuation, self-worth, who I am, like who I am to me, who I am to you, and how I represent and present myself. That's very different. Some people, we live in an area where it can be very flashy. And I think when you can take your ego and put it to the side and really have, like I said, the understanding of who you are and the confidence for who you are and how you live your life, that is the single most powerful thing that I've learned and grown along the way. And as with everything else that we've talked about today, you don't know what you don't know. And I think being able to constantly turn inward, through yoga and whatever your outlet is, if you go on walks, if you're a runner, if you go to the gym, surfing is my going in and being out in the ocean. That's my church out there, and wherever you can go and turn inward and really reflect on who you are and where you are in your life, is really where you're going to have the biggest growth. I referenced earlier about, not being reactionary in life, but, understanding how to respond, and all these little growth pieces. And that's the daily step in our lives to figure out, how do I show up as the best version of myself? Not just for me, but only until I can be the best version of myself can I be the best friend to you, the best husband to my wife, and everybody else around me, be the best team lead. And that's where I am right now. And the biggest part of that success is when the people that you're working with on the other side are allowing you to be that best version of yourself. And it's those relationships where it's combative or it's unhealthy, where they're not going to allow you to be the best version of yourself. You have to consider if those are one of the top 5 people that you need to have in your life. And maybe you need to filter that person out and filter somebody in that can help lift you up so you can be that best version of yourself.
Yeah. That's great. Well, let's wrap it up with this. Can you boil all that down, all these things that you just brought up, if we had to kind of summarize it and give 3 takeaways for people, what you want people to remember? You mentioned you're doing some mentoring for some young women in your life. What are the 3 things you want them to remember as they grow up and start to build their careers?
Not just them, but anybody.
Of course, anybody. Yeah, we're channeling them.
We're channeling, right. But listen, it all boils down to knowing that you can, that you are capable. and you can do and be anything that you want. There's a self-worth and there's a self-confidence that comes with that. You can slice us up into 50 different subcategories if you'd like, but it's just really lifting up the people around you, and really helping other people. I talk about being the best version of myself. Dee, when you and I spend time together and I talk to you, I want to make sure that I'm giving you the opportunity for you to be the best version of yourself. And how I can, help bring that out of you.
Yeah,
right.
And I appreciate that.
It's the same thing that I'm going to communicate and mentor with these girls and anybody else that I'm interacting with on a daily basis. It's like, hey, let's be amazing. Because what happens, not getting into politics or religion and all the disconnect that's happening in our world. But I think once we start to look at each other and say, hey, you're trying to figure it out, I'm trying to figure it out, and let's figure that, I'm trying to figure out how to be the best version of myself. How do I help you be the best version of yourself? And then, as with high tide, all boats rise together. And let's be the best versions of ourselves. Let's love each other. Let's care about each other. And, make the world an amazing place and be great at what we do every day.
Wow. I love that. That's a great way to wrap it up. What's funny is I usually end with the last minute here with sort of an open mic, and I'm still going to give it to you, but I feel like you just did it, where it's just like, hey, wrap this up in any way you want, whether it's some recommendations, words of advice, or things that we missed, a shout out or a call out, or apologies or a shameless plug, whatever it is. I'll still give you the mic here for this last minute here, but that was a great way to summarize it all. But Nick, what do you want to leave us with?
No, listen, I love you, Dee. I love.
Thanks, man. Love you too.
I love your family. Appreciate you guys, and that's it. Let's just be amazing human beings. Let's lift each other up, and let's live great lives.
Well, you heard it here, live on the Underswell. Let's live amazing lives. Let's lift each other up, and let's be amazing. Nicolai Glazer, thank you so much. Thanks for your time today, all your advice, and the great stories. It's been so fun, and I know I'm going to see you soon. So have a great weekend if I don't see you before then.
Thanks, Dee. Appreciate you.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what you heard, be sure to check back weekly, subscribe to the show, and if you want to be featured on the show, come hit us up at theunderswell.com. We'd love to hear from you.